for liftoff in T-minus 30.
Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment.
Secondary guidance systems engaged.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark.
All systems are a go. All systems are a go.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at will.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. TC and Friends Monday Night Musings, Season 4, Episode 7. We're in for a treat. I don't think this is going to be a real long episode for you tonight, folks, but it's an update of sorts. In a juxtaposition, if you will. But before we get to that, before we get to the juxtaposition, what we've got going on, I want to thank the channel members. And by the way, channel members, we're doing Henry Hazlitt's Economics in One Lesson. We're two readings in so far. So at the time that you're watching this, you have a week basically to, well, let's go with, you have 5 days to watch and listen to the first 2 readings. It takes us all the way up to chapter, let's see, what was it? Takes us all the way up to the end of chapter 6. And folks, I am not a professional audiobook reader, by the way. So if you're interested in taking part in the conversation next week, a members only chat through video, where you don't have to be on video, you can use an icon. But if you're interested in taking part in a members only chat, listen to those 2 readings. I'll write down your thoughts and questions and whatnot, and be prepared, because next week I'm going to offer an opportunity for people to take part in a live members only chat for that. So also a big shout out to show producers iMav from Subscribestar, the Angry Vet from here on YouTube, and I'm still looking for somebody over on Rumble, folks, for channel members over on Rumble. So let me know if you're interested. If you're a Rumble watcher, a Rumble ranter. And shout out to my anonymous. Really, really appreciate everything that you do. Got developing information. Going to be having on some witnesses from Pam's case. If you guys are not familiar with Justice for Pam, please head over to that playlist, Justice for Pam, and watch through what we've got there. I've got a couple of parents that are going to come on, and they're going to talk about their experience with the Wabasha County Social Services and how their child responded to the terrible way that things were handled with Pam, and their thoughts on what was going on with Pam as well. And these are people who are to this day are defending Pam. So as much as Wabasha tried to defame Pam with her clients, her customers, her friends, these people are standing behind her. And so far, everybody has continued to back up Pam. So yeah, just if you haven't followed me on Substack, the link to my Substack will be in the description of this video. There is free content on Substack now, and there is also behind a paywall content. And my behind the paywall content will be a collection of short fiction and poetry, and then my life memoirs that I'm working on, and as well as my breakdown of my journey to discovering the corruption in the law enforcement career field, the institution of policing, and why I ended up leaving. So those things will all be available behind the paywall there. Somebody asked me about why I would consider putting things behind a paywall on Substack, and I said, I'm putting up mostly the fiction over there and then my memoirs. And writing is an art. And the truth about art is that what we consider the classics now, for the most part, were all written, they were all commissioned pieces. So people that we look at now and go, wow, that person was a masterful painter. That person was a masterful um, sculptor, or a masterful playwright like the Bard, Shakespeare, whoever it might be. Most of that stuff was written specifically to make money. They didn't just like write this and throw it out there. And so this is a way of publishing without going through a publishing house. So do with that what you will, right? If you like authors, if you're like me and you like Stephen King as a uh, author, as a fiction writer, as a person who writes not just horror fiction but thrillers and deeply contemplative philosophical work in what he does, you pay for those books, right? Why should I be obligated, or why should anybody else who writes like that be obligated to give it away free to anybody who demands it? So that's what I'm doing with my Substack. My more philosophical pieces and other essays about life and how we interact with each other, that will remain on Substack, free for everybody else to read. But if you're interested in my fiction and my poetry and then my memoirs, my personal life memoirs and stuff, you could $5 a month on Substack to take part in that. One of these days I'm going to go through all of my channel members and thank you all personally by name. But we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna get into the depth and the meat of this show tonight. Monday Night Musings is not a series where we just sit around and joke. Sometimes we have fun and we have guests on for Monday Night Musings. Sometimes it's just me. Sometimes it's just me in the audience. And now that I'm doing pre-recorded Monday Night Musings, I'm in the chat so I can interact with the chat better. I want people to understand that I am in the chat. Part and parcel because I want to be able to interact with the chat better, so that we're both kind of taking part in the Monday Night Musings, and you can ask me questions as we're going through the video, and I can actually respond in time to the questions and see the questions as they're coming up. And so I'm sure we're going to have some questions and comments and feedback on what we're talking about today, but we're going to get to it. So if you remember, Trooper Shane Roper of the Minnesota State Patrol last year on May 18th killed Olivia Flores, 18-year-old Olivia Flores. And if you go down to the playlist, the Trooper Shane Roper playlist here, you're going to be able to watch. One, I broke the story about his driving record. It was me, folks. I released the news, the story. I released the information 24 hours before local media. I released the story before Rochester Police Department announced the conclusion of their investigation. I released the story before the Olmsted County Attorney's Office announced that they were going to charge Roper. Not only that, because I don't have the money that all the local media outlets have, I don't have the dash cam and all that other stuff, but I not only did I announce all that, I predicted how Trooper Shane Roper of the Minnesota State Patrol would be treated by the Rochester Police Department, by the Olmsted County Attorney's Office at the time under Mark Ostrom. I predicted how he would be treated. I said, I hope he won't be treated differently, but I predicted how he would be treated. I did not know how accurate my prediction would come to prove out, but I did predict all of it. I predicted the fact that he would be treated with kid gloves. You cannot deny that I predicted that stuff. I predicted it from day one. Not only did I tell everybody that Trooper Shane Roper was going to be found to be guilty at the very least of negligence, but that he would be found to be responsible for the accident by the investigation and that charges would come, but that he would be treated with kid gloves, that some sort of plea deal would be worked out. Now, the only thing that we're waiting to see is that the plea deal works out. If he actually gets as we're fighting through all of this, we're gonna find out if a plea deal comes. But remember, his trial was supposed to start on March 31st. That's That's what the reality is. His trial was supposed to start on March 31st, and it still hasn't started. If you saw a jump cut there, it's because I have a house full of grandkids today. And so I know, don't have to say it. I don't look like a grandpa. I get it. I understand. But yeah, anyway, so I have a house full of grandkids. So where was I? What was I saying? Oh, I was talking about we're waiting to find out if Trooper Roper is going to go on trial ever, because there's he's entitled to his defense. I don't begrudge him his defense. He's entitled to take it to jury and to be found guilty or not guilty or whatever by a jury of his peers. The man's guilty of sin. I want everybody to know that. Trooper Shane Roper is guilty of sin of what he is being charged with. It would be nice if the prosecution would do more in holding him accountable. It would be nice if the judges would stop dragging their feet and make some decisions. Now, what I want to remind you of was the fact that Trooper Roper, everybody was defending him. All your normal back the blue at all costs, boot licking, blue leather choking on individual statists, the conservatives were, well, troopers got a hard job. He's like, this person was at fault. They shouldn't have been doing what they were doing. The trooper was trying to stop these terrible criminals. They were all defending him. And then after he was charged, well, he was just one bad apple. There's just a few bad apples, and he's just one of the bad apples. You can't judge them all. And they're going to take care of him. He's not going to get treated with kid gloves, which he's been treated with kid gloves. There again, watch the playlist. He never had to show up for a mugshot at the beginning. He didn't get arrested as soon as the charges were announced. He didn't get booked in as soon as the charges were announced. He didn't get a mugshot as soon as the charges were announced. He didn't get fingerprinted as soon as the charges were announced. He didn't get a bond. He murdered somebody. Somebody lost their life, and he didn't get a bond as soon as that was done. And I know I'm a constitutionalist. He has a right to a reasonable bond, but he didn't get a bond. He killed somebody, and he didn't get a bond until he went to arraignment. And even at the arraignment, he was released on his own, like on a signature bond, basically on his own recognizance. He was admonished to not drive and to stay away from the victims. And the judge, Daley, inadvertently forgot to order him to go down and be booked in and fingerprinted. Let that sink in. All of that took place, right? All of that, indisputable that Trooper Shane Roper got nowhere near the kind of treatment that I would have gotten, that you would have gotten, and nowhere near the treatment that this young lady that I'm about to show you got. I want you guys to meet 18-year-old Madeline Steinkamp, suspected of hitting a man with her car and fleeing the scene. She's charged with criminal vehicular operation. She's 18 years old. She's the same age as Olivia Flores. The same age, folks. That's fact. She's the same age. What is the crime that she's being charged with? So on April 20th, so we're less than a month away from Trooper Shane Roper's fatal murder, or non-fatal murder, the fatal accident in which he murdered Olivia Flores and caused gross bodily harm to other people. We're less than a month away. He still hasn't gone to trial. So on April 20th, allegedly, This young lady, Madeline Steinkamp, allegedly hit somebody on a scooter. And apparently, in a Dodge Dart, and apparently law enforcement managed to track her down, take her into custody, question her, get her booked in, hold her overnight, and get her in front of a judge where she was then released on $0 on a $0 bail with conditions, which is what she's entitled to by rights, according to her natural rights, according to the Constitution of the United States. That's the way it's supposed to be. But notice the juxtaposition. She killed no one. She killed no one. She's alleged to have done serious bodily harm to someone. And I'll have a link to the story in the description of the video if you want to find out how, exactly what it's alleged she did. But I want you to let that sink in. She killed no one. And they tracked this girl down like that. They got her tracked down, they got her arrested, they got her questioned, they got her into the Olmsted County Adult Detention Center, they got her booked in, they got her in front of a judge, and they got her out on a bond. She's got all this. She's got a mugshot. You could see that. She's got a mugshot, folks, right there. This young lady has a mugshot. She has a mugshot. Within hours of hitting someone, allegedly, and then allegedly fleeing the scene, they have her tracked down and they have a mugshot and fingerprints on her, and they've got her held and in front of a judge and released within hours. Trooper Roper, months he went. Months this man went. You tell me. You tell me if Miss Steinkamp is being treated exactly the same way as Trooper Roper. Is Miss Steinkamp who's alleged to have done something, but what she's alleged to have done did not result in the death of anyone. She didn't murder anybody. Indisputable. She didn't murder anyone. That's clear. There again, she's alleged to have done something. But did she? Now, maybe she ends up taking a plea deal. I don't know. Maybe she ends up taking this to trial. I don't know. But the question is did Madeline Steinkamp, did she get treated the same way? Is like this story published on the 22nd at 12:29 in the afternoon, April 22nd, 12:29. The accident took place on April 20th of 2025 at 9:15 p.m. So about 9:10 p.m. They hunted this girl down and found her. They put that much effort into finding this girl, this alleged perpetrator of this alleged crime on her part, tracked her down, and they not only did they manage to get a statement from her, but they managed to release her statement to local media. And her alleged statement is right here. Steinkamp allegedly told police the following: that her car had been damaged by an opossum, that someone had walked very close to her vehicle, and she wasn't sure if she had hit them, and she thought she hit a bumper or curb while downtown earlier that evening. We could get that statement out. Law enforcement can get this statement out in a non-fatal accident. They could invest massive amount of manpower to find this girl and get her into custody. But nobody could ever step in and say, maybe we need to arrest Roper like we would have arrested anybody else. Rochester, Minnesota Police Department, Olmsted County Sheriff's Office had to be in on this because the girl is from Byron. And it says that they according to court documents, officers responded to a residence on 6th Street Southeast, located Steinkamp's car, had found a crack on the driver's side front bumper. Damage consistent with hitting an object or person, missing weather trim that matched the piece found at the North Broadway and Center Street. So we know for a fact that RPD is involved. I don't know, if the address that they're giving is from Byron or if it's from Rochester. I'm assuming it's Rochester. So here's this Byron teen in Rochester, allegedly does this thing, and they managed to track her down to an address that fast. But Roper goes months and 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 never sees the inside of a detention center, never sees a set of handcuffs, never sees a booking deputy to get booked in, never gets a mugshot, never gets fingerprints or any of that stuff. Nope, none of it. And he murdered somebody. Roper murdered somebody and didn't get any of that treatment. Let's take a look at Mr. Roper here, right? This is one of the most recent stories on Mr. Roper. This is from April 18th, 1 month. 1 month to the day of the accident, or 11 months, 1 month away from the 1 year anniversary of his murder of Olivia Flores. See that? April 18th, 2025. His defense team filed new documents on April 18th in response to a state's April 7th memorandum, in which in part provided the court justification to submit evidence of Roper's previous driving infractions during his time as a state trooper. So the prosecution is wanting to use his prior bad acts as a trooper. Well documented. And there again, folks, I'm not going to rehash all of it. But these prior bad acts, they want to use these things that were enough cause. He had multiple other accidents while on duty. Multiple. All as a result of his unprofessional, unethical conduct behind the wheel of a wage slave, tax cattle funded vehicle, totaling numerous vehicles, causing numerous amounts of damage to vehicles that he drove. The defense wants to toss all of that out, say it's got no bearing on it. It does have bearing. It absolutely freaking does have bearing. And you guys, defense team, you're doing your job. I get it. You want to act like it doesn't matter. So now they're responding. All of this stuff is pushing this out. This guy's not going to go to trial until after the anniversary of his murder of Olivia Flores. So once again, let's juxtapose young Ms. Steinkamp is alleged to have done something on the 20th of April. By April 22nd, the media has a statement from law enforcement with her alleged comments to them. She'd already been arrested, investigated, charged, incarcerated, taken into a courtroom, and had all of this stuff settled out. Within 2 days, and here we sit with Trooper Shane Roper a mere 2 days before Ms. Steinkamp, still fighting his stuff. There again, which he's entitled to do. He's entitled to do that. He's entitled to fight that. You want to tell me there isn't a two-tier justice system? You want to tell me that the back the blue at all costs crowd? You want to tell me that the thin blue line doesn't exist even for people like Roper? You want to tell me it doesn't? I will look you dead in your goddamn eye and tell you you are so full of crap, it's not even funny. The man is filing. He's petitioning the court to change the venue of his accident to get it out of Olmsted County because the jury pool is going to be tainted by all the media coverage. Look, there should be no place in the entire state of Minnesota, there should be no place in the entire country where Trooper Shane Roper cannot go or can go, where they're not going to know his name and know what he did. Like, he's entitled to a fair trial, but he shouldn't be safe from the bias. People should know who he is, they should know what he did, and they should damn well know what he's trying to do now. You people want to tell me that there isn't a two-tier justice system in the state of Minnesota? You want to tell me there isn't a two-tier justice system in the entire United States of America, of these several states, that favors public servants, that favors cops, that especially favors the thin blue line family? This 18-year-old girl alleged to have committed a crime, and based on the way they wrote the statement, it doesn't look good for her. It doesn't look good for her. TC predicts that she's probably going to take a plea deal. It's going to get talked down to some lesser charges. She'll probably end up doing some probation, paying some restitution. She's not going to really do any jail or prison time, I don't think. I think they're probably going to offer her a deal. And it's going to be over very soon. But she's in the system now. And it'll be over before Roper's situation. Because the system is dragging its feet. They're doing everything they can. They're going to do what they can to adjudicate the situation with Ms. Steinkamp, make sure that they get some sort of conviction on her, get her in the system so they can keep her trapped in the system, so that they can get her dependent in the system, so that her life is ruined. They're doing this to ruin her life. That's the goal of the criminal justice system in the state of Minnesota, unless you're a pedophile. Pedophiles get protection in Olmsted County, by the way. They get protected. And the new county attorney is no better than the last. He's a sleazeball. Just like Ostrom. They want her trapped in the system. And they will not they won't give her a cushy plea deal. They're not going to come at her with a cushy plea deal. They might for Roper, I don't know. They might. But more than likely Miss Steinkamp will plead down. But it'll probably be her defense attorney that ends up trying to get that deal. I would imagine the Olmsted County Attorney's Office is still behind the scenes trying to get Roper to take the deal, take the deal, take the deal, take the deal, take the deal. You know, and the thing is too is Roper's acting like he's runs a risk here. Like, there are so many bootlickers. There are so many people in the Olmsted County area that love to fillet cops. They just want to fillet cops. But I mean, it's pretty common pretty much everywhere you go still. He doesn't really run that much of a risk of getting a conviction. I'd say maybe 50-50. And all it takes is one just hard-nosed bootlicking sycophant that's just like, govern me harder, daddy, conservative statist type, as opposed to the leftist statist that I'm surrounded by both. It's not going to take many of them. Won't take many of them at all. Just one. And he walks. That's all they have to do. They just have to convince one person that he didn't do anything wrong and that it was, and they're victim. I, if I can find it here, I want to read this to you. I'm not going to show it. The defense specifies Roper had the right of way at the time of the crash, and the driver of the vehicle Flores was riding in entered the intersection against cross traffic, saying the Ford Focus Drivers Act was tantamount to attempting to beat a speeding train at a railroad crossing and the sole cause of the decedent's death. Victim blaming. These dirty sons of bitches are blaming the victims because Trooper Shane Roper, who was doing 80 plus miles an hour leading up to the accident, seconds, like split seconds before, and only because he slammed on his brake did his vehicle slow down. If he hadn't hit his brakes, they'd all be dead, except for Roper and his ride along. They're blaming the driver, who was also a victim in that accident. I want you to put yourself in the shoes of that young lady who lost a good friend that day because a corrupt, sleazeball trooper decided he could do whatever he wanted to do, drive as fast as he wanted to drive, didn't have to run lights. No lights were activated. He was breaking not only violating agency policy, he was violating, and there again, I have the playlist that shows this, state statutes that say law enforcement, emergency vehicle, responding to or engaged in any kind of activity where they're going to be, I'm paraphrasing, speeding or whatever the cause might be, will drive with due caution in a responsible manner with their lights activated and their sirens if they're a cop. And it has to be reasonable. He was looking for a speeder, allegedly, that he saw earlier. And now they're blaming the victims. You caused your own injury, you caused the accident, and you are single-handedly responsible for the death of your friend. These fucks are entitled to make whatever defense they want to make. And they will find one bootlicking puke. I guarantee you they will find one bootlicking puke that will fall for their freaking argument. Because all they want to do is take it up the ass from a cop. That's how much they love these people. And every cop out there is wringing their hands waiting for this case to be settled so that they can justify every one of their actions. That's what they want. If there were any good cops left in Minnesota, if there were any good cops left in Southeast Minnesota, if there were any good cops left in Rochester, if there are any good cops left in the Minnesota State Patrol, if there were any good cops left in Olmsted County, or any good cops anywhere in this area, they'd all be out there saying, Trooper Roper, you need to plead guilty. They would be begging him to plead guilty, but they won't, because they know that at some point this could be them, because they all fucking drive this way. Every one of them. I have video after video after video after video after video showing that cops don't care about the very traffic codes that they enforce. They will violate them without fear of any kind of penalty. That's why people call them pigs. I want to remind you who this is about. This is who this is about. If Miss Steinkamp is guilty, she should pay a penalty. We all know that Trooper Roper is guilty. And there's no penalty in the state of Minnesota that's sufficient enough. That's who this is about. Don't tell me there's no two-tier justice system in the state of Minnesota. Until next time, fight for your liberty. It is yours. Fight for your freedom. It belongs to you. Sic Semper. Tyrannus.
We are go for liftoff in T-minus 30.
Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment.
Secondary guidance systems engaged.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark.
All systems are a go. All systems are a go.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at